Hello and welcome to this video for Math for Business and Finance students and Math Application students. It's Chapter 3, additional set of word problems, the odd number problems. Even though they weren't assigned, I'm going to keep on doing some of these additional sets of word problems because students have difficulty doing word problems. So it gives a little bit extra work and a different look at it. Okay, so move on to problem 3-81. And this problem says Eastman Kodak announced in January 19, 2012, press release that it had filed for bankruptcy protection. The 131-year-old company has struggled to adapt to the digital world, has incurred far more debt than assets. Before I go any further, just as a quick aside, I dabble in photography a lot since 1977. And it was interesting to me that Eastman Kodak, they filed for bankruptcy in 2012, and they actually, they went under. The business closed. And the strange part about it is that, it says here they struggled to adapt to the digital world. Well, the thing that's ironic is that Eastman Kodak created digital photography, okay? But yet it was digital photography that caused them to, go bankrupt and not be able to keep up with the marketplace because Eastman Kodak had kept their feet firmly in the print industry, the film industry. In other words, here was the 35 millimeter negatives that they'd, create pictures from. So they created the digital world, digital photography, but because they weren't forward thinking, they created it and it ran it, and that creation ran themselves into the ground. Cell phones, the use of cell phones and taking pictures, digital pictures, based on the technology they created, put them out of business. So that was just a little background on Eastman Kodak. All right, anyway, so continuing on, the company reported it has 5.1 billion in assets and nearly 6.8 billion in debt. Okay, how much more does it have in debt than assets? Okay, so whenever you're doing a comparison, you're always talking about subtraction. Okay, now in doing this problem, we always want to have, it's difficult to take a bigger number and subtract it from a smaller number. So you're not going to want to write the problem of 5.1 billion and then subtract 6.8 billion because you're taking a bigger number from a smaller number. Instead, you want to write it as 6.8 billion and then but write it over 5.1. Okay, so you're taking the 5.1 from the 6.8, but here's the thing. The 6.8 billion is debt. That's a negative number to them. That's money that they owe out. Accountants write that using brackets like that. You can write it as a negative 6.8, and then you're subtracting a positive 5.1. So the difference between the two, which in this case here is 1.7, when you subtract the two, you get the 1.7 and you keep the sign of the larger number. So in this case here, it would be a negative 1.7, meaning that its debt was greater than its assets. So the company owed 1.7 billion more than it had in assets. Okay, and that's why it went under. All right, your assets, you have to own more. You have more assets than you have in liabilities. When you get upside down like that, you go bankrupt. Or in the case of like a house, you buy a house. If you can't, if you owe more than the house is worth, it's called being upside down. And if you can't pump your own money into it in order to rectify that, chances are you end up in foreclosure. Okay, but that's a whole nother story. All right, 3-83. The Denver Post reported that Xcel Energy is revising customer charges for monthly residential electric bills and gas bills. Electric bills will increase 3.32 and gas bills will decrease 1.74, $1.74. What is the resulting new monthly increase for the entire bill? Okay, so if I had an increase of 3.32, all right, and a decrease of $1.74, the difference between the two, and that's all we're doing here, is we're looking for a comparison. So the difference between the two is $1.58. Okay, so that increase will be $1.58 for the entire bill. Now, if Excel serves 2,350 homes, how much additional revenue would Excel receive each month? Well, if they're receiving $1.58 and there's 2,350 homes at $1.58. Okay, that's 0, that's 40, it's 24, 28, 2, that's 18, that's 0, 25, carry my 2, 15, 16, 17, 10, 11, then 0, 5, 3, 2. Add those all up, 0, 0, 13, 9 and 12 is 21, that's 2, that's 5, 6, 7, 3, all right? And I have 2 decimal places, so it's 1, 2. So my answer is $3,713. Okay. All right, next one, 3-85. Gracie went to Home Depot to buy wall-to-wall carpeting for her house. She needs 104.8 square yards for downstairs, 17.4 square yards for halls, and 165.8 square yards for upstairs bedrooms. So immediately I'm just in the back of my mind is I'm adding these together, okay? Gracie chose a shag carpet in order to, I'm adding them together to get an idea as to how much she needs totally, okay? So, and then of course I'm going to probably get a dollar figure, so whatever I get for the total times the dollar amount is going to be my total cost. Anyway, at this point in time, that's what I'm thinking about. So Gracie chose a shag carpet that costs $13.95 per square yard. She ordered foam padding at $2.75 per square yard. And the installers quoted Gracie a labor cost of $5.75 per square yard in installation. Okay, so what will the total job cost be? All right, so we have kind of like two things that we have to do here. We have to add up, how many square yards she needs, and then we have to add up all of the dollar amounts, okay, for the cost, and we multiply the two together in order to get our total cost, okay? So we have here 104.8 square yards for downstairs, 17.4 for the halls, and 165.8 for the upstairs bedroom. So that comes out to a total of 16. That's 20. That's 2. That's 6. And 12 is 18. That's 8. That's so she needs 288 square yards for in order to cover everywhere that she needs to cover. Okay. Now her costs. Well, it's going to cost her $13.95 just for the carpeting. And then she bought $2.75 for the foam padding. And she was quoted $5.75 for the installation. So we add them all up and we come up with 15, carry my 1, it's 24, carry my 2, it's 5, 7, 12. So her total costs per square yard is going to be $32.45. Okay. Yep, I'm sorry. 22. Sorry. $22.45. And we want to know what our the total cost will be, so we need to take the $22.45 and multiply it by the 288 yards in order to find our total cost. Okay, so let's do that. It's 40, 32, 36, that's 3, 16, 19, 16, 17. 06971, and that's 108942. Whoops, 44. 0615. That's 1026. That's 2, 3, 10, 14, 6, and 2 decimal places. So it's going to cost her $6,465.60 as a total cost. Now, you know, that is, just using some, logical thinking, a little bit of common sense here, okay? Theoretically, and this is just the really, really long way of doing this, if she needed, and depending upon what the question asks, let's say it said, the question asks something like, well, how much did she need? What was her total cost for the downstairs carpeting and the total cost? Well, in order to figure out the downstairs carpeting, you would have taken the 104.8 and then multiply it by each one of those, installation costs, the cost of the carpet, the foam, and the installation. So I can multiply 104.8 times all of those and then add those all up in order to get a total cost for the downstairs, okay? If that's what the question had asked. And if it asks, for the total cost, well, I could have done the same exact thing. I could have figured out how much it costs for the halls, all right, by multiplying again 17.4 times each individual cost. And I could have done the upstairs bedroom, right, by doing the same thing, the 165.8 times all three again. And when I add them up, I would have 3 different total costs, right? I'd have a total cost for the downstairs, I'd have a total cost for the halls, and I would have a total cost for the bedrooms. And when I add them all up, I would have ended up with that same exact number, 64, 65, 60. But I would have known how much it was costing me for downstairs, how much it's costing me for the halls, and how much it's costing me for the bedrooms. But that's not what the question asked. I'm talking hypothetically here, all right? You have to pay attention to what the question asks and use a little bit of common sense. Yeah, I could have gone through all of that longish stuff, okay, and figuring out the cost for the downstairs, the cost for the halls, and the cost for the bedrooms, okay? I could have, depending upon what was being asked, it might have asked, well, how much was just the carpet cost? Or it might have asked how much was the foam padding total cost, and how much was the installation cost. So that means, I would have to go and multiply each individual one, what I was looking for, the 1395, or the 275, or the 575, times those square yards. But I wouldn't go 1395 times 104.8, 1395 times 17.4, and 1395 times 165.8, and then add those up. I would have gone and went and said 1395 times the 280, 275 times the 288, 575 times the 288. Okay. Again, it's just using a little bit of common sense and thinking about what the entire question is asking. As you can see, this can get complicated. You're probably sitting there thinking, what is this guy talking about? Numbers all over the place. This times that times this times that. It all depends upon what the question is asking. And in the back of my head, I'm storing all of this information. These are all possibilities that I was thinking about. And that's why I voiced them in the video. However, the bottom line is, what is the question asking for? It says, what will the total job cost Gracie? It didn't ask, what will it cost for downstairs? What will it cost for the halls? What will it cost for bedrooms? It didn't ask, what was the total cost just for the carpeting, or for the padding, or for the labor. Okay. Those are all pieces of the whole. So to solve the problem, all I needed to do, like I originally said, was add up all the square yards for the area that I needed, which came out to 288. And then I also needed to know per square yard. Okay, added up those costs to get 2245, and then multiplied the one times the other, and ended up with my answer of 6,465.60. Okay, so that's longish, but again, these word problems, these additional sets of word problems have a tendency to be a little bit more difficult. Okay, it all depends upon what's being asked. All right, well, now I'll see you in the next set of videos for the summary practice tests.